From an enterprise perspective, cloud computing has not lived up to expectations. When we consider the pricing models, the total cost of ownership, and the gap in experience, this assessment is 100% correct. But what about the other perspectives? From the position of a smaller company or startup, cloud computing has completely changed the landscape. Cloud computing has given smaller, leaner, more agile companies a competitive advantage. But how's that possible? How are companies with significantly less resources able to compete with the big boys? On the surface, none of this makes any sense. But as you dig in, things become clearer. When you consider a company's driving factors, everyone says cost containment, bottom line, profit. But those words mean two very different things. For enterprises, it means we don't want to pay this much money next month. But for startups, cost containment means if we don't control cost, there may be no company next month. Let's just say that the motivation levels are vastly different. But as we look forward, this added pressure or motivation is what gives these smaller, more agile companies the advantage. In order to stay in business with limited budgets, you need to be able to provide a comparable product at significantly lower cost. They didn't have the same luxury as enterprises. They couldn't just lift and shift things to the cloud with the intention of refactoring or making things better later. That meant they had to build directly in the cloud, leveraging all the cloud's advantages. But if we take a step back to consider some of the collateral hurdles or advantages depending on your position, you'll see how these startups and smaller companies conquered the cloud and tamed the digital frontier. It's the nature of the beast. Imagine the culture within an enterprise organization. Everyone knows that enterprises provide a level of comfort and job security. How many times do you hear, "This is how we do it. This is how we've always done it"? That isn't exactly the most conducive environment for innovation. So what happens when a hotshot developer has an idea for a solution, only to get shot down within an enterprise? Does that developer decide to peel back the curtains and peer into the cloud? Does he decide to build that solution in the cloud? Does he start learning the cloud and leveraging its potential? Does he get blown away by the supercomputing capabilities at his fingertips? You see where this is going, right? It's the innovative developers that start migrating to the cloud. It's the builders that start moving to the cloud. So that means, in terms of talent, the top-tier talent start moving toward those companies building in the cloud. That's not to say that enterprises are left with bad talent, but it's fair to say that the ambitious and driven talent start moving to these other companies, and this bodes well for smaller companies. With an extreme focus on cost optimization, they're still able to attract top talent, and all that talent wants to do is create solutions. They'd love nothing more than to come up with one solution for one problem, build that one solution into the cloud using modern architectures and frameworks for high-speed delivery, and bam! That's that. You can't exactly do that in an enterprise environment with applications and code and dependencies all over the place. The cloud allows you to future-proof your solutions as long as you build it to spec, leveraging cloud-native technologies. Cloud applications will always be good to go, and even when they're not, it's quick and painless to upgrade as opposed to applications within an enterprise. Then you could take that solution and upgrade it, make it better, add new features, all at light speed. And you can see this in real time. The proliferation of applications over the last few years has been crazy. Now there's a third-party solution for nearly any issue, and that's simply because someone thought, there's a better way to do this. That simple statement can start the momentum in the cloud while it gets hit with red tape in an enterprise. If you notice, some companies will tell you their application was born in the cloud. That means that it was created using cloud-native services, leveraging modern technologies. This means that their application has all the power and speed that you've become accustomed to. Furthermore, the power of the cloud allows small teams of developers to create fully robust and enterprise-grade solutions. If done properly, the cloud offers redundancy, disaster recovery, data protection, and storage. All the things that you'd expect from large organizations are now available to small teams of developers. You no longer have to staff for outages and redundancy. The cloud providers fill that void and provide you with resources for uptime. Then, as long as you build properly for redundancy, that means the application is redundant. No more hiring data recovery teams. No more hiring all these people. Then, to throw in an added benefit, you have these large cloud providers with tons of resources, constantly upgrading, constantly creating new services and features. For example, everyone's talking about AI and ML. Can you imagine the resources it took to create some of those AI services? Well above the resource capabilities for small companies, But you hear the news about AWS or whomever releasing some new AI service, and as a smaller company that built the application in the cloud, well, suddenly those capabilities are available to you. Integrating those new services into your application is significantly easier since your application was already in the cloud and built on cloud technologies. Let's say you integrate some fancy AI ML tooling into your application. How good do you look? Especially if it only took you a few weeks to integrate. That's why you see several of these third-party, born-in-the-cloud applications so far ahead of their counterparts. They're able to leverage the resources of these cloud providers in a way that enterprises haven't been able to. And that's the rub. You see several of these large players in the space that have fallen behind their smaller competitors. And that's because they've had to retool and rebuild their applications to leverage the cloud. It's much simpler to build from scratch than it is to retool. When building from scratch, you build what you need to build. Then as you receive feedback, you update your software. No harm, no foul. But if you have a legacy application that you're replatforming to the cloud, suddenly things aren't so easy. The bottom line is the old way of doing things is the old way of doing things. It's not the cloud way of doing things. Some of those things that you did in your old systems may not work in the cloud, or they may be difficult to replicate in the cloud. So how do you tell your clients that some features that they're used to will no longer be available? Those are some of the hurdles that enterprises face when moving to the cloud. Applications born in the cloud don't tend to have these problems. The cloud has absolutely leveled the playing field. It's no longer the company with the most resources that win. Now, the best product wins. And for smaller companies, the cloud has reduced the barrier of entry. Startups are now able to compete for market share. Never has this much computing power been available to everyone. The competition spurs innovation, and right now, smaller, technology-centric companies have the advantage. This has been a complete disruptor to the industry. If this is the stuff that gets you excited, then watch this video where I talk about the best technologies to learn today, all leveraging cloud technologies.